A free walking tour, a journey through time with lots of history and of course some insight into Argentina's hyperinflation. We've just done a morning 2 to 3 hours walking tour and it was absolutely sensational. Looking into Buenos Aires, the culture, the history, the art, the Paris of South America. And we're just going to be walking you through all the key landmarks and information. Of course, free walking tours are free, but the idea is you give them a tip at the end. We gave them $10 each, which is pretty standard here in South America. I saw online it said 10 to 30. If he had $30 per person, he'd have made about $1,000 in 2 hours. So maybe we're all in the wrong line of work. I'm going to try and recap all the best things, a little deep dive into the history of Buenos Aires. If there's anything that slightly misses the mark, please let me know in the old comments. Whilst you're down there, hit that subscribe button. Still en route to 3K subs. It's the final city and country of the trip. So if you're watching, not subscribed, hit that down below and let's get straight into it. So Buenos Aires as a city is absolutely huge. 15 million people, but 3.2 live in the CBD, which grows, he said, like by 50% during the working week. So a lot more reminiscent of European times that are super busy in the capital. And do you know what I mean? People are a little bit more spread out into the suburbs and enjoying the countryside and that fresher, cleaner air. It's built on the River Plate, which literally means River of Silver. If anyone has seen like the river, the estuary, I know there's a lot of ambiguity, whether it's a sea, whether it's an estuary, whether it's a river. Well, actually, a lot of people online, I put about Montevideo saying it was a river. I've said it's a sea. People are fighting in the comments. The guy told us today, and I would love to hear your thoughts. He said it's an estuary. That's what I would have said, being a geographer. But if anyone's seen it, it's literally like, it's not silver at all. It's super murky. So he said it should be the Brine River. But let's deep dive into the old history, the background. So in the 16th century, Pedro Mendoza initially founded Buenos Aires with 1,500 people in 4 ships. I've not been on too many ships in that era. However, I imagine that amount of people, so you're looking at like nearly 400 people per ship, that's pretty cramped. And there's 2 things on this. One, I was like, Mendoza, surely it's got to have some relation to the city of Mendoza. Absolutely not. It's just a coincidence. The Spanish guy came over and yeah, had the same name. They really struggled in the initial period to build a community. A lot of issues with the land, obviously very different to Europe. So like the agriculture side, yeah, it was pretty bloody difficult. So they had 5 years, they abandoned the city, loads of crop failures, which is less than ideal. And then 40 years later, Juan Daragay, I'm definitely going to mispronounce that wrong, but he refounded it or founded it, depending on kind of how you look at things, and that was in 1580. And then they had something there, and they put this in the centre of town, which still remains the centre of town now, and it's called the Stick of Justice. And you might think, oh, is it something to do with the law? Technically it is, but it's literally where they used to execute people. So if you broke the law, if you got something wrong, you got given the old see you later. Plaza de Mayo, which is where the tour and most tour groups start, is absolutely beautiful. You have a lot of like the main buildings and architecture all around this main square, and it's been that way since the beginning of time, or since they founded Buenos Aires. It's where like the president, well, the king and then the president, I guess now works, not lives nearby. And yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. We're here in the heart of summer in January. It's like 32 degrees at like 11 a.m. this morning, just absolutely clear blue skies. You have obviously the Argentina flag just rippling in the old wind. I don't know, just absolutely whistling messy into the old ears. The Pink House is one of like the cornerstones of that. This was actually used or was built by the Spanish. They actually built a fort there many years ago, and the water used to be right up against the fort, but obviously with the the land changing due to like the river, the ocean, and obviously being able to retake that land. Obviously the sea has moved a little. A bit further right, they actually demolished it in the 19th century when they weren't getting attacked as much. So yeah, obviously don't need the battle reinforcements. We saw the change in the guard, and as I mentioned, it's the presidential palace, but it's only where he works, not where he lives. And when they've had like a lot of the issues with hyperinflation, the banks like closing and they wouldn't like let anyone take their money. There's a really iconic picture where the president is literally fleeing in a helicopter off the roof because there were so many people just like rioting, kicking off, and absolutely fair play. Like, you know, when banks are like, we're not giving you your money, people are not going to take that too well. And then there's another really iconic one. He was saying it's like where key figures like the president speaks to the people, but it's also where Maradona came and gave a speech after, yeah, just doing bits in the old football scene. But yeah, really, really interesting. We saw the change in the guard while we were there as well. Not quite on the same level as Buckingham Palace, but they switch between the presidential palace and where San Martin is buried over in the cathedral, about 200 meters away, just right on the plaza. So yeah, the first like hour of the tour, or if you want to keep it like really condensed, you can do everything with walking like 200, 300 meters, which is pretty top draw. So there's two stories on why it is the pink building, the pink house. One story he said is that is not as believable. I actually personally think this is more believable than the latter, but I'll put them both to you and you can let me know in the old comments. So there used to be the Federalists and the Libertarians. One was red, one was white. When the government took over and obviously consolidated ideas from both to have a more democratic way of working. If you combine red and you combine white, what do you get? You get pink. So they painted the house pink. I don't know if he was saying if it was one as like a symbol to say we've combined the ideas, or one to say we've taken over, and a bit of a see you later to both. So I think that's personally the more believable one. But he sort of said the real story is they painted it initially with animal fat and animal blood to keep it cold and due to the humidity. So, and that's coming from a geographer. Do you know what I mean? I love my little stuff like that. But yeah, do you think it's option A, or do you think it is option B? So we'll let you think on that one. In 2001, that is when they had obviously the worst financial crisis they've ever had. That's when they had like obviously a lot of hyperinflation. That's where banks were like not letting people take their money, and that's when like the president was like fleeing off the roof in the helicopter. So yeah, sounds pretty loose behaviour. Do you know what I mean? Hyperinflation, inflation is happening all over the world. But yeah, sounds pretty crazy back in the day. And again, I think this is one of the most crazy things we've heard the entire time of travelling around cost of living and inflation. This should hopefully put it in perspective. So 1,000 pesos in 2017 was worth $60. 1,000 pesos today is worth $1. So a lot of people here, he was saying that they'll either try and have dollars or save money themselves at home. Like obviously the lack of trust in the banking sector, the financial space is pretty high in Argentina. So you have like the government who control elements of cash. If you want to go and get money out, that is like the blue chip rate. And then they also have the black market. And me and Em have been saying, like, when we've been walking around Bariloche, Mendoza, the amount of people who are obviously saying to us, like, money exchange. We're a bit like, we've just paid card everywhere we've been. But I guess a lot of people who live here, or I guess it's a more stable currency just to have dollars. And I guess on that note, we've paid every single place we've been to in card. So again, it's not been a problem for us. You get a really good rate on Monzo. So it's not like a place where a lot of people before were like, oh, you need to take loads of dollars, take loads of cash. It's not been what we've seen. Facing the pink house is a little white building. It looks like a little church. It's basically like the old town hall. So they used to export goods back in the day, but the Spanish only let them export goods to Spain, which, do you know what I mean? That is not good for driving up the price. That's not good for expanding your business. So yeah, basically what happened in 1806 and 1807, Great Britain, the team, coming to attack the old Spanish, well, I guess attack Buenos Aires, and the idea was that because they pay all these taxes to Spain, Argentina, but if anything happened, you're paying for like protection, kind of like racketeering actually, outrageous bit of kit back in the day from the Spanish. But yeah, when the English attacked or Great Britain attacked, the Spanish were nowhere to be seen. So as you can imagine, the Argentinians were a bit like, well, what are we paying all this money for? It's absolutely, yeah, this is an absolute shambles. And then obviously in 1808, Napoleon conquered Spain and killed the king. So it took them a little while. It's not like today with your TikToks, your Instagrams, your YouTubes, your Gazrite travel giving you all that information. It took a little bit of time for that information to come. And then basically in 1810, they held the first meeting about obviously liberating the country. And it took them 6 years after this to get to that stage. And if you see a picture of this like town hall back in the day, it was a lot bigger, it was a lot wider. And then when they redeveloped and rebuilt the city, they wanted it to be like Paris. That's why they call it the Paris of South America. And there's a lot of buildings that look like that, the architecture, even just how the streets look. They've got one road that obviously looks very similar to like the Champs-Élysées. It's connecting to obviously the major landmarks. And yeah, they had to cut either side of the town hall to give like that diagonal shape to the buildings. But yeah, beautiful city, by the way. We've only had 24 hours and already Argentina, Buenos Aires, the top of the South American travel list, and could be getting in to the top 5 countries of all time. But we're going to save that judgment until the end. Possibly the most iconic, or what I personally found the most interesting, was around the cathedral. So again, this is right next to you. You have one side the pink house, you have one side the old town, and then obviously you have the cathedral. If you looked at it and thought cathedral from the UK, from Europe, it doesn't look anything like a cathedral. It looks more like a bank, something from the finance space. It took them 100 years to build. It has that kind of like ancient Greek neoclassic look to it. Absolutely stunning inside, and one of the most crazy facts or bits of insight was around Pope Francis. So obviously he grew up, he's the current Pope, he grew up obviously in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and he's the first ever Pope from outside Europe. So the Argentinian people loved him. Apparently when he was here, he was so... he never used to travel around by crazy transport. He always used to get on the subway, get on the metro, and just chat to people and obviously get on a real level with them. And also, this is actually crazy, the guy told us that he used to be a bouncer at a nightclub. So, I mean, I've not stood next to him. I don't know how big the fella is, but yeah, pretty loose that the Pope has got a little bit about himself in the old ring. But possibly like, quite a weird one, because he was saying they used to love him, but then he's never been back to Argentina since, yeah, he was inaugurated as Pope. So if anyone knows anything about that, please let me know in the old comments. However, it is where San Martin is buried. We learned a lot about San Martin back in Mendoza, and learning about like the liberation, 1 of Argentina, but 2 of Chile, and of course Peru. He sent the Spanish who were in Santiago, capital of Chile. He sent them north and south with false envoys about how he's going to split his forces, and he took one of the most treacherous routes through the Andes Mountains. He's lost about 10% of his army, about 500 people, and then yeah, liberated Chile, liberated Argentina, and gave it back to the old people. He has 3 statues around him where he's buried, and basically these symbolise the 3 countries, that he liberated. As I mentioned before, the change in the guard, they moved from the chamber or burial chamber of San Martin back to the presidential palace and just mix it up. But yeah, you've got to have some patience. I was saying, like the guys that stand there, similar to what the guys at Buckingham Palace, concentration, and yeah, bladders of an absolute saint. I've been disarray, not being able to have a wee for that long. You see the presidential palace, of course. You see Congress, which is like built, and then obviously there's a road that connects them, which is Avenue de Mayo, which is very much the one I was saying that's built like the Champs-Élysées. Beautiful buildings throughout, that French architecture, which is absolutely stunning. And then there's La Pampas, which is like I'm not going to say the outback, it's like all the super fertile land outside the city. And to put it in context, he was saying it's the same size as Germany and France combined. And that's what allowed Argentina to grow so quickly from a financial standpoint. They could export so much meat to Europe and across the world. That's when they were doing absolute bitwaris. And obviously a little bit more recently said it's obviously tailored back with obviously again, I don't know too much on the political side. He was saying from like a government standpoint, the hyperinflation. But over the last couple of years, I've seen the guy with the new president with the flare little beard, has been doing bits on that. So thought that was super interesting. And then, yeah, we finished off. We saw a few more absolutely stunning buildings on like the walk-through time. It was so hot today, as I mentioned, like 30, 35 degrees, absolutely baking up. And then we have the final little bit of insight, a little bit of knowledge. He was asking, what is the national sport of Argentina? So I'll leave it. Do you know it? I'll give it about 5 seconds. I was thinking, surely it's got to be football, the Messi, the Messiah, Madonna. Hopefully I didn't say Maradona. No, I just said Madonna then. Absolute stinker, Maradona. Tell you what, Madonna would not be doing bits in an Argentina shirt. Maybe she would, who knows. And then somebody said, oh, is it polo, stuff like that. I've never heard of this sport. And even when he showed us, I was like, I've never even seen it. So the word in English is duck. And literally he was like, what they do now, they have a ball, they throw it through a hoop. So it looks like Quidditch. He was chatting to us about Harry Potter. But he was saying back in the day, they would have a dead duck in like a leather bag. And then basically you would go around on a horse just to throw it through like a net. And you have a net either side that you protect. Never heard of it, never seen it. Apparently it's the Gauchos, the locals game. But yeah, a little bit of insight, a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of wisdom. Doing these little videos help me like, I guess digest some of the information. Hopefully it sticks in here for future reference. But yeah, for me, one of the key tips me and Em were kind of talking about today, like just for future travel, is if you're gonna go traveling like we've done, do a walking tour on the first day you get there. You get all that insight, all that knowledge of a city, and then obviously then when you're walking around, it's just going in the mind, drenching and drizzling in there, and then hopefully it sticks for the future. But yeah, very insightful, definitely worth it. I think for me, 2 hours is absolutely perfect. Any more than that, we're getting up to 2.5 hours today just as we're finishing. And I tell you what, 35-degree heat, the ginger, the northerner, we cannot hack those temperatures. But yeah, Buenos Aires is already looking absolutely stunning, filled with history, culture, beautiful buildings in the architecture, little cafes, and yeah, we're going to be recounting that in a little first impressions tomorrow, or I might have even done that yesterday, depending on how I decide to upload these. But as always, questions in the old comments. We've got 10 days left. There's going to be a video every single day here in Buenos Aires. Tomorrow's video is we're getting back on the cervezas, the vino blancos, going to a little food and drink market. So I want to see you there. Hit the subscribe button. I'll see you tomorrow, baby. Remember to share. He's always cooking. Let's get it.